intro is so unnerving this week. Welcome, everybody, to the Remake podcast. My name is Pagan, and joining me, as always, is obviously my co-host, Dan.
What's up, everyone?
Hello. And we have some brand new faces and some regular faces.
Faces.
I only have one face.
Are you sure? It's a horror podcast. Who knows?
How many faces
Louis,
do you
returning
have?
to the podcast. You're a podcast veteran at this stage, Louis. Welcome back.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. And introducing to the podcast, Billie Jean. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here.
Hello, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's lovely to have you. So if you're joining this and you guys have read the title of this episode, you'll all know that we're going to be talking about some horror stuff this week because Halloween may be over and Mariah Carey is ringing in all of our ears, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be playing some horror games over the holidays to come. So this week we're going to be talking about horror games and why. Why do you like them?
That's the real horror, is Mariah
It's
Carey
just a real horror.
in our ears.
Is Mariah Carey?
The earworm.
No, the real horror is Mariah Carey's like All I Want for Christmas Is You playing in like January. And you're like, no, it's too late and too
You're breaking
soon.
the rules.
We just
You're
did
breaking
this.
the
Let
rules.
me live, for God's sake. Yeah,
Let me live. But yeah, welcome everybody. Billie Jean, you're brand new to the podcast, and the reason that you came on today was because I invited you here to talk about horror because I know it's your thing. You have an amazing social presence online with Video Nasty Presents, and I just want to see if you would like to introduce your channel and your page and what you do there.
Cool. So thank you for that absolutely gorgeous introduction, Pagan. I don't know how I can live up to it. So delighted to be on the podcast, guys. Happy to be chatting to all the replayers about this. So my online moniker is Video Nasty Presents. I'm a graphic designer by day, and I used to be really bad at all things color theory. So I decided to kind of make a personal project for myself, like a challenge to try and teach myself color theory. And one of my favorite movies of all time is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the ending sequence of it in particular is very beautiful. So I'm kind of autumnal. So I wanted to kind of break down the colors used in that scene because they were so gorgeous in comparison to the horrifying subject matter. And yeah, it was just something people really responded well to it, and it snowballed from there. And then I kind of started it for a while, and then when the pandemic hit, I was just bored. So I started an Instagram, and it kind of blew up relatively quickly, which was really cool. And so people kind of use it as a reference for like art, kind of figure painting and stuff, illustration, tattooing. I have a lot of makeup artists and nail artists and stuff that use it, which is really cool. So now it's just a bit of an online community where we all just talk absolute shop about scary things. And everyone is welcome.
Yeah,
including
good.
you,
And
especially you, Pagan. We'll make you a convert.
Oh, thanks.
A convert to horror.
Yeah.
Time.
Life goal.
It's coming. In the dark.
It's not. No, but thank you so much. It is a beautiful page, though. I totally appreciate your page. I've been following your page for a while. How long did you say that you started it? We started in 2020?
So yeah, it was April. The idea kind of kicked off, I'd say about 3 years ago, but it was like nothing serious. But I kind of focused on it properly at the start of lockdown, so April 2020.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that's been going over a year and a half, almost 2 years, like coming up on your second year. And you've garnered like 44,000 followers, as well as some very, very well-known followers. And I want to talk to you quickly just a little bit about that, because I mean, I obviously recently saw Hideo Kojima retweet your palettes and kind of confess your love for the palettes, as well as Edgar Wright. But I'm wondering, is there somebody, I think briefly we spoke about this before we started recording, is there somebody that has liked your content or followed your content or messaged you that just blew your mind?
Yeah, so like obviously Edgar was huge.
Jesus
and
followed
Hideo
you.
was massive.
Jesus?
Yeah, Jesus.
His
Yeah.
name is Jesus.
Actually,
Hey,
I forgot
Zeus?
to mention that. Jesus. Yeah.
Louis, I
It's like
got you.
in sync.
Look where I'm from.
In sync.
I know.
Yeah. a huge one was Brian Fuller, who created Hannibal. That was insane to me because I love Hannibal. And then like I've kind of seen like Henry Cavill like Set of Palettes, which was mind-boggling, and like Norman Reedus and stuff before, which has been insane. But yeah, like I appreciate anyone that decides to kind of follow my shenanigans, but some of the kind of the bigger names is like, I'm going, I'm so dumb. Why are you doing this? why do you want to see my stuff? Are you okay? Do you need a doctor? But yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Oh,
it's been really
good.
cool.
No, it's a great page, and we're going to drop that in the links below so that everybody can see that. Yeah. So if you're interested in following Billie Jean, it's at Video Nasty Presents. We'll put that in the links. We'll shout that out at the end as well. But thank you so much for being here. The reason, obviously, your page is centered around a lot of horror themed movies, games, etc. And we're going to talk to you guys today about horror in general and particular games. So we're going to move on to our horror questions. What classifies as horror to you? I'm going to start with Dan. Dan, what is horror to you? Like, what is the horror genre in video games specifically?
Oh, okay. So I was going to say, are you talking about video games? Horror?
Yeah, let's hone that right down, or we could be here for hours.
I'm going to start off by saying horror in video games has many subgenres. So it's difficult to nail it down, but if you're going at the umbrella of just horror, obviously the game should have some elements and themes of trying to scare you on a consistent and regular basis, I think.
Okay.
Specifically, like, some of the bigger names in horror games are the ones that they're constantly putting you in these dreadful situations and having to deal with terrifying things, whether it's monsters, people, dark and scary corners and, back alleys, and having to beat things with a crowbar that you don't want touching you. It's tough because I'm trying not to go too deep into what I don't think is horror, because horror is subjective. It's what scares you, and I don't want to put a hard label on it because, again, it's very subjective. Someone might play Luigi's Mansion and go, but it's not a scary game so much. It's kid scary. It's a different kind of scary. So
I would still be scared.
Honestly. Horror, again, like it comes down, like there's survival horror, there's atmospheric horror, there's isometric horror, and I'm more scared of certain ones than others. So
I see. Louis, do you agree with Dan? Like, what's horror to you?
Yeah, we've talked about this at length, specifically horror, Dan and I. That's one of the many, many things that have made us such good friends is the way that we view, the way that we interpret horror. And although we don't always agree on the exact subject matter itself, we do agree that how you interpret it is how it's either supposed to be interpreted or how it wasn't, but now you can see it from the other side. For example, like Resident Evil, not typically scary after maybe, I'll say up to 3. Up to original Resident Evil 3, like 4 was more action based.
What?
Huh?
I'm so fucking horrified of Resident Evil games. It doesn't matter about the graphics or the style or whatever. Like, it's still hard.
Well, I'll get to you, Pagan. Don't worry. Because I have some things that I want to talk to you about.
Anything's horror for me.
Exactly.
Okay,
so,
that's why I said it's subjective.
I just finished playing Resident Evil 4 on the Oculus for the VR, which it took me a couple weeks to finish because...
Did you beat it?
Yeah, I just beat it.
Okay, it's a long game. It's funny that you mentioned that because I actually just finished playing the Xbox HD version of Resident Evil 4, and it took me 30 plus hours to beat the game.
Whoa.
Well, okay,
it's long.
So for me, it took me a long time. I'm doing a speed run through the professional, so it's on the hardest mode, but I have more upgrades. But it took me so long because it felt like back when I first played it. And you're looking at every single frame, right? Look at that, that's cool. But now you can reach out and touch it. So
I feel like the gameplay might be quicker on the VR because you can move and shoot in VR, can't you?
Yeah. And I mean, I figured out little ways to make it a little more fun. Like there's some tricks that you can do. I found that every time you take out a gun, a new clip for your gun or magazine. It automatically drops the one in your gun, And I did it by accident. I dropped it and I swept like that. And I found that if as long as the clip is in the air, you can automatically get it in there. So what I will do is I will like just to amuse myself, I'll take the clip, throw it up in the air, catch it underneath, and then reset.
Amazing.
So I'm just doing all this
Tomb Raider
stuff, and I will put the shotgun, hold it by the stock, get the handgun, shoot everything until I'm out of handgun bullets. Then, like when there's a lot of enemies coming at you, then just immediately drop the gun and go with the shotgun. So I'm getting all these little tricks that are making it a little bit easier. And the action is a little bit more fun in that regard. But at the same time, like, it's not scary to me. Like, I know people that...
So it's less horror for you.
Yeah, it's always been a little bit less horror. And even though El Gigante is literally right there, it's not terrifying me. But there is one thing that does terrify me, and that is actually... Because when you walk into a new door from a new part of the level, you turn around and that bitch is right here, just
Oh my God.
with those dead eyes that don't see anything, but they're moving around like they do. And I'm like, this is what Invasion of the Body Snatchers feels like. So the little girl that you are saving is completely more horrifying to me than anything else, because the Uncanny Valley is what scares me. So,
I see.
like, that's what I mean by it's subjective in the sense that these literal zombies with these mangled faces coming at me, yeah, you're kind of cool, whatever. Little girl. Okay. Now I have nightmares. Thank you.
I have an anecdote to share, if I may.
Yeah.
You may not.
No.
You asked permission. So I was like, no, fuck it.
Same notion. This just happened to me yesterday before recording this. I was playing Ninja Gaiden Sigma from the Master Collection. Not a horror game, not really scary in any sense. It's a pure action game. There's some crazy, scary-ish stuff in it. But anyways, there's a cutscene, and there's a character in that game called Ayane. And there's a cutscene where she's like standing in a corner, and it's looking at her. And the cutscene ends, but as it ended, her model disappeared, except for her eyeballs. And it was like, ah!
Yeah.
That. It was exactly that kind of thing.
Shit.
That wasn't supposed to be there, but it was like, oh.
Pagan's TV wasn't broken.
I would have died. Like, there would have been a funeral, Billie Jean, for you to attend. Billie Jean, what is horror to you in terms of video games? Like, what do you consider a horror video game?
My kind of base understanding of horror since I was a kid, like even in general, not just video games, would be like it kind of all roots to like Stephen King. And it's basically like a situation, like I find the scariest situations are something that like is an everyday thing. And I think this kind of came from The Mist, was that like, we've got like a father and their child, they go to the supermarket, this scary alien mist descends, and suddenly what should have been normal was no longer normal. And like I think that's a kind of a running motif in a lot of Stephen King stuff that's like applicable to so much other media and mediums. And I don't think it's like he didn't invent that, obviously, but I think he kind of fine-tuned it to an extent that it just kind of bled out. So like I think if you kind of look at any kind of horror game or even horror movie, there's like a kind of a nugget of like realism and truth that kind of hooks you, and then suddenly it becomes nightmarish. And that kind of is, that whole kind of nightmarish element to me is kind of what makes a horror. That's something that's so like unbelievable that it frightens you. And yeah, like I find that psychological horror would tend to kind of resonate with me the most. Like I love zombies, I love genuinely kind of jump scary things and stuff, but like once it's in your head, that's kind of like true horror for me. When you can feel it under your skin.
Like on that note, like on the note of what all of you guys are saying, this uncanny valley, this something that scares you in particular, is being scared fun to you? Like, do you enjoy actually being scared? If you played a horror game, on that same note, if you played a horror game and it doesn't scare you but has all the tropes of a horror game, do you still have fun playing it? Dan, I'll throw it to you.
I say it's a very loose yes, sort of like if it's pretending to be a horror game, if it's pretending to be a horror game, but it's not very scary, but it has all the motifs, it's like, okay, getting kind of bored. Like,
I see.
All right, and I could probably, if I really think, I could probably name a few games I've played with the expectation of horror, and then it's not horror, and I'm just kind of like, meh.
So are you more impressed then? Because we all know you're dead inside. It's a running joke here on the podcast. So you're dead inside. So are you more impressed then with a game that can scare you?
Yes, absolutely. And I could say, to answer your question of like, do I enjoy being scared? Yes. I'm actually at this point now, because I'm dead inside. I play games hoping they will scare me. Like, I want them to scare me.
Class.
It's like a person that doesn't have any more taste buds. They keep eating hot stuff, so they get some kind of
hot
flavor.
Sauce. Yeah, exactly. Well, Louis, what about you? Do you agree with Dan? Are you happy to be scared? Do you enjoy being scared?
I'm gonna kind of wait to answer it in full, because I have a feeling I know what kind of question is going to be coming up pretty soon. So I'm going to wait for that part. But I'll say it like
okay, that's fair.
I will say it like this. Dependent on the kind of horror is what I want to feel. Like, speaking of stuff that's not horror, that feels like horror. When I was playing Prop Hunt on Call of Duty with some friends, I got the feeling of like when you were a little kid and you were playing tag and you could feel their fingers right behind your back. And like you get that. Oh, I get that.
Yeah.
That's what you get when you play a good, fun horror game. Like when you watch a good, fun horror movie, as opposed to something that is ostensibly just terrifying, which no, is not fun. And like I said, I'll get to a contextual example of each later, but yes and no. I love the thrill, the rush, because I'm not going to jump out of an airplane, but I can play a monster chasing me off of my TV and turn around and be like, oh yeah, I'm safe at home. Okay, we're good. There's a difference,
Okay.
So that's what I like, but I do like the rush, and I am usually impressed when something can genuinely get me terrified. Jump scares don't do anything to me anymore unless it's set up very well. Movies or games, because all it does is it tells me, oh, look over there. So if I'm playing a game that I don't like, especially with I'm doing a lot of VR horror because I'm really looking for that really scary thing. If I don't see it, but I hear that, I'm like, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
Like, what did I miss? And now I'm out of the experience because I'm too busy trying to find what was supposed to scare me, as opposed to something just doing what it was supposed to do.
I concur with that. That I've always jump scares to me seem cheap, and like I'm never impressed by a jump scare.
They can be good.
Interesting.
They can be. Yes, they can be.
Like if you're doing it just for the sake of a jump scare, you suck and I hate you. But if you do it and you have like a setup to it and there's a reason for it, there's a guy, I believe it was Cordry Effects on YouTube, where he says jump scares should not be used to scare you. They are not supposed to be the scare. They're supposed to be the beginning of like a chase scene or something like that. Like when Michael Myers popped out and you get the bah! And he comes out and now there's a chase scene. So you got scared and now you're in the thrill of it. And modern horror doesn't do that a lot. Instead, that's the scare, and they end it there. And it's like, well, what now? Like the ghost just decided, bye.
Yeah, troll, troll
So,
face.
Yeah.
Billie Jean, like how do you think about like the jump scare aspect as well? I mean, obviously, do you first obviously like being scared? Do you think that's a fun thing? And in relation to what Louis and Dan said, that they're mostly a cheap trick to scare audiences, but mostly you're not scared by them.
I do enjoy being scared. I always have done. I don't know what kind of masochistic streak was kind of.
I was gonna say you're all sadomasochists.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, like I just think I think a lot of it kind of stemmed from when I was a kid. Like my dad does love a good horror. My mom would be quite anti-horror, and I was always fascinated with it. And I think a lot of it was the fact that I knew categorically I wasn't allowed experience anything like horror movies, horror games, or whatever like that. So I was obsessed with getting my hands on anything related. I used to have, it sounds so bad in retrospect now, but I used to have this, like our attic in the house kind of had all the kind of the older consoles that would kind of be retired up there once something new was brought in. And I had this pile that I hid in a beanbag Basically, a lot of my friends when we were kids, like their their parents kind of bought them whatever they wanted, and when they didn't want stuff anymore, they just give it to me. So like I used to end up with all this like amazing kind of hauls of like horror games and movies and stuff because they just didn't want it because they like had everything, so they didn't need it. So like I had like a bean bag full of like Silent Hill, Resident Evil, stuff like that. And it was just like my little kind of treasure trove that I just always kind of secretly had to kind of revert back to because I just loved the whole experience of horror. Jump scares can be very cheap a lot of the time. They're just they're a really kind of easy kind of way to kind of make the non-initiated folk wet themselves, essentially. I went to see Resident Evil, the final chapter in our local cinema, and the sound design in that is like really, really poor. I love those movies, but it's really poor. And every 20 to 30 seconds, there's a jump scare, but there was like a loud screeching sound that accompanied it. But the cinema's speaker was blown out, so every time, every time it like happened, it would like take everyone's head off in the cinema. So after that, particularly, I've been kind of anti jump scare because I was like partially deaf after it. But yeah, it can be cheap, but when you get a good one, it's chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Paul W.S. Anderson definitely like overdid it with those movies.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those movies are
so good, though.
They're a whole topic on their own. Like those whole movies. But good to know. So if you guys are like avid horror game fans, I have two questions basically. Leaning on a third. So do you have a favorite horror game? Is the first question that I'll ask, and then the second is there a game that, if it's different, is there a game that scares you more than that, or a game that you just refuse to play because it's too scary? So we'll start with your favorite. Billie Jean, I'll ask you.
I have a list of all the games I've played, and I'm trying to figure out which out of them would be my favorite. I'd say it is more than likely a toss-up between Resident Evil and Silent Hill, because they were kind of the first three of each were kind of my first kind of game experiences. I'd say Silent Hill 2 is probably my favorite.
Okay.
It definitely had the most impact on me. But yeah, no, I would reckon Silent Hill 2. I would say Silent Hill 2 was the kind of crowning jewel and has yet to be topped. It's come close with things like Alan Wake and stuff, but you never forget your first. know, that kind of way.
Is there a particular reason Silent Hill 2 really made that lasting impression on you, Billie Jean? Like, was it the design of the sound or the characters? What really got you? What makes that your favorite, I guess?
It was just the story was so scary. It was just like the horror of of what happened. Yeah. So unnerving, like with James and his wife and the psychology behind like Pyramid Head and the nurses and stuff. It's just like it's nightmarish. Like it doesn't really kind of bear thinking about. Once you like with the likes of Resident Evil and stuff, as scary as they can be, a lot of the time it just kind of boils down to evil corporation, biohazard, virus. You know, we're all kind of well equipped with biohazards at the minute, so it's like not a thing. But like the psychology behind Silent Hill is kind of, it's second to none. It's really so well thought out and so well executed. Like 1 kind of was, obviously it was the first kind of outing. Then 2 so came into its own. 3 is also amazing, but I think 2 just hasn't been topped yet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just the pure horror behind it is just awesome.
Nice.
In all sense of the word.
In all sense of the word is right.
Awesome.
Dan, what about you regarding your favorite horror game?
That is a really tough question for me because I love so many. I want to say that, like, as far as the games I've played the most, it would probably be like Resident Evil 2, the first original, and the remake, and the remake of Resident Evil 1. Like, I love those games to death, and I've played the bejesus out of them. I have to say, like, Silent Hill 2 is definitely one of those games that it's so good, and does such a good job of being terrifying. I've only played through it once or twice because of that. I probably restarted that game a dozen times, and then it's like, oh man, like this is unnerving, and I drop off. But I want to piggyback that with I think a game that bridges the gap of both of those really well is Dead Space. Like, Dead Space has the playability that Resident Evil has, but it also has the psychological elements that Silent Hill has. It fucks with you hard. Silent or like the sound design in Silent Hill was brilliant, especially the music. And Dead Space does it with the environment sound. The environment sounds are a character in themselves in Dead Space, and the narrative and the story goes from something's not right to I can't even tell you how bonkers it gets, especially now I know with Pagans playing Dead Space for the first time. I don't want to spoil anything.
God help me.
It gets so
don't spoil it for sure.
Twisted, and it makes you think so hard. Especially, here's one little hint / spoiler without getting into it. It gets into really deep religious tones.
Oh, interesting.
That aren't what you would expect. Yeah. And it makes you really question a lot of things. And like I have so many loves. I have so many favorite horror games, and
there we go.
It's hard. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
It's hard to pick a favorite, but it's that of kind of like Louis hinted at, like favorite horror game for being scary, and like favorite horror game for actually like something
being
I'll just
scared.
Play a bunch, you know. It's especially a hard question to answer when few games actually scare me anymore. So
yeah, that's
the Resident Evil 2 remake did a good job. Like it actually did a good job of creeping me out. And
I think I have encountered what you were talking about regarding like the religious aspect a little bit in some audio logs and shit, because he was like, what's happening down there? He's like, he said, my God, what is happening down there? And he's like, exactly, it's God's work. And I was like, what are you on, psychopath? But I totally see what it is. All right, okay, sorry. So we were talking about your favorite game, and you said Silent Hill 2. I'm going to throw the favorite horror game question. Had we just been finished talking about your favorite horror game, Dan? We're saying it was Dead Space?
Yeah, I wrapped up, like, I was saying it's hard to answer that, and I was like, it's kind of stuck between, like, what Louis hinted at as far as, like, what's my favorite horror game as far as what actually scared me and, like, what is actually genuinely fun to me to
I see.
play.
So technically Dead Space would be your favorite horror game on all levels because you really enjoy it, but it's not the scariest game you've played.
Yeah, I think that's about a fair wrap up, I guess.
No worries. Louis, what about you? What's your favorite horror game?
Okay. So I like the way that you worded it.
It's really hard to answer.
My favorite... All right. I'm going to go about it a few ways.
Okay.
My favorite horror game of all time, as like a representative of what a true horror video game should be, I would have to say is a kind of a toss-up between Silent Hill 2 and The Last of Us 2. One of them more narratively speaking, which I would say is Last of Us, even though it's not strictly horror, which is why I would say Silent Hill, I would say is the perfect horror video game ever created. It's not the scariest, it's not narratively speaking the best, but the encompassment of everything that it can be is as perfect as it gets. If you want to introduce somebody to the best, you show them Silent Hill 2.
I see.
Like for me, it wasn't the scariest at all, to be honest, but I did understand what was terrifying about it. The most fun I've had is probably, probably Resident Evil 2, because I used to play that game daily. I didn't have a memory card. And so I got good at speed running.
Oh, nice.
And I would always get to the last level, and I would always die to Tyrant. And then eventually I beat the damn thing, and I didn't have a memory card to show off. So whatever. But it was just always fun. And now even with the remakes, they're still just so much damn fun. I love it. But what I would say probably the scariest game I have ever played, I just finished about maybe last month, which is Visage, which is a horror game very much taking after PT.
Oh.
I beat it. I'm never going to play it again.
Nope.
And it's not because it was too scary. It's just the subject matter. As they say that monsters in monster movies are never monsters. Mm-hmm. They're representative of like some kind of allegorical theme. The themes in this video game are so just horrifying that it's so organic that like and it doesn't hide it from you. It's like, oh, this is alcoholism, this is abuse, this is, and I live with that daily, working with people with mental diseases and stuff like that. Like, I can't watch slasher flicks. I can't get into like, let's not meet horror stories and stuff like that. Because I live with that every single day. Okay. I have the real people that really go through that shit on a daily basis. So I don't like those horror movies. Give me ghosts. Give me zombies. Give me something I can do. Even if it's a representative of something, at least I can just turn off my brain and appreciate it. But Visage is so terrifyingly good at those representations that once I beat it, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I never have to do this again.
Oh, shit.
But it's probably the scariest game I've ever played. And not just because of those themes, it also is 100% terrifying. Like, you don't want to turn the next corner because there are random events that happen in any corner of the house at any time. So you're never getting the same playthrough just as you're walking through the house. No, and those jump scares are good too. So it's a perfect horror game.
Yeah. Visage is on my to play list on Game Pass right now.
It is.
I am downloading it right now.
I like it.
Downloading it right now.
I am going to download it.
I love how like me and you are totally different people, Billie Jean. You're like Visage. I'm like, Visage is going on my list of games never to touch or play ever. Yeah. Billie Jean's like, I'm downloading it right now.
Because I had heard.
I am totally downloading.
I had heard about it, but I didn't know anyone who played it, so I kind of went under my radar. But that is a very, very strong, very, very strong call for me to play it. So I'm going to get it right now.
I waited. We have a friend, Ash, that he played it first, but he did tell me to wait a little bit because when it first came out, it was so buggy that everyone was just
I think that's what turned me off. I had heard that.
Yeah, it patched, and it's definitely complete. It's definitely everything that you want now. It's very good.
Is it actually just having a look at like some small, for God knows what fucking reason I'm having a look at shit. But do you have like weapons and stuff, or is this like an Outlast, like you run and hide?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Is it more like Alien Isolation?
Yeah, is it more like Alien Isolation?
It's more, no, not really. Okay. You do have to run away from things that can kill you, but it's not like you run and you hide. It's and that's part of the horror is that like you're gonna die. I promise you, you're going to die because it's a lot of trial and error, but a lot of it is also puzzle solving.
Oh, okay.
So you'll get like a random item that you have no idea, and the game makes sure like this is an important item. So you're just kind of looking at it for like an hour. And you're like, what the hell do I do with this thing? And then all of a sudden, it'll kind of connect the dot. You're like, oh, okay. So now you open up a new area. And with that area open, you don't know if something's going to come out and attack you. You don't know if you're going to have something to throw at it. You don't know anything. Mm-hmm. So it's very much that give it a shot.
Yeah.
On that note, like it still sounds really interesting to me because one of my favorite elements of good horror games is puzzle solving. Most good horror games have a lot of puzzle solving in it, and that's what initially drew me into Silent Hill and Resident Evil and the old PS1 days. But for like newer games like Outlast, Amnesia, Agony, there's a lot of these newer style horror games where it's all about hiding from the thing that can kill you. Those games generally bore me to tears. They're generally pretty scary in their elements, but the gameplay, the idea of there's the monster, I need to hide before it finds me. Oh, it found me. I'm dead. I got to start over again. That to me is very tedious and boring.
I agree,
and especially games that don't do it well, like Agony is an agony to play because it's like there's no rhyme or reason to when the monsters find you and then you're just like, boop, you died, and it's like, okay.
So I mean, on cool. Kind of like where Louis had led into then the category of the scariest game you've ever played. What is that to you, Dan?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. It's hard for me to say, mostly because like at a time when games would scare me, it probably would have been the old like Resident Evil 2, Silent Hill back then, especially like Silent Hill 1, the first time playing that game, and you pick up the radio and then you're like, why is this radio making all this static? And then you get attacked by a monster and the static gets louder and louder and more disturbing. Those times when I was a kid and it was like, this is so unnerving. This is so like, oh man. But then again, I'm dead inside now. So
True. Very.
It's hard for
because those games were so damn good. Like it took me.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I was 25 when I first beat Silent Hill 1, and immediately went into Silent Hill 2. But it terrified me as a child, and I'm like, I'm never gonna do that again. And like now I'm watching all the horror movies I was too scared to watch as a kid, and I'm like, Candyman wasn't that bad, but Jesus, it's a good movie.
It's a great
there's a lot of different things to go about, and I'm actually a little more appreciative that I waited. Because for whatever reasons, I think that Child's Play is one of the better films of its time, one of the better slasher paranormal kind of flicks. And now as an adult, and now I know how to read and understand film, I can appreciate it more and go back and watch other movies. Like I just saw Pet Sematary 2, and I'm like, oh my God, this is dog shit. And so now I know how to kind of
you can gauge,
watch things and play things and understand them. So I'm happy that I waited until my adult form to play Silent Hill and truly understand it and truly give it the appreciation it deserved, because I wouldn't have given it as a kid. I know that.
I can say one thing as far as a recent game that did get me pretty good would be Phasmophobia.
Really?
The first few times playing that game.
A couple times.
The first few times playing Phasmophobia when I didn't know what I was doing, and like the ghost would just randomly pop out of nowhere, and like we have video of the first time I played that game where a ghost appeared in front of me, and like I walked through it and I heard the ghost go, "Hey," and I was like, like it made shivers go down my spine, and I freaked out a little bit. And then the problem with that though is the more I play the game, the less it hits me, the less it bothers me, and I become attuned to it. So
I'll actually come back to
like they crawl at you. I didn't like at the third time it happened. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die. All right.
Yeah, it's like, exactly. I'm like, oh, I'm dead.
I'll circle back to this now because I want to talk a bit more about multiplayer games. Obviously, with Phasmophobia and Back 4 Blood just launching. Back 4 Blood obviously launched just recently, but we'll circle right back to that. Billie Jean, what about you? What's the scariest game that you've ever played?
Like kind of from a psychological standpoint, I would probably stick with maybe Silent Hill 2, but then like as Dan was saying about Dead Space, I think Dead Space I had kind of one of the most like kind of visceral kind of physical reactions, like actual jumping and Dead Space is actually like a really great example of jump scares. And every time you think that like you're like, okay, I know what's going to happen, then suddenly like you're just absolutely ripped out from the ground under you, and that's it. Like like Dead Space would be.
I wanted to mention that with Dead Space that it does the jump scare right, like
so
Louis mentioned, where it gives you the jump scare, but then it's the encounter, it's the running away, it's the oh shit, you know, like.
I a little bit of a piggyback on that one. For me, it was Fear. That's why it was on my list.
Fear 2, Condemned.
Oh,
yeah,
like
when you turn around, when you jump into the little corridor, and you see her crawling at you, and she's just a shadow.
Yeah,
that was the first time I'd ever screamed in a game.
No, thank you.
And I remember I was a teenager, and I went ah, and I started shooting, and my dad went, "What's wrong with it?" It's a game. It's a game. I'm alright.
I still remember the first time playing Fear when you're coming up the ladder and like the little girls at the top of the ladder.
Yeah.
Like, ah!
They were right after another.
Right back down the ladder.
They were right after another. You jump into the thing and then you go up the ladder. I'm like, stop doing this. Anyway, sorry, go on ahead.
I think I'd say one of the big ones for me would have been with actually PT. And I when I downloaded PT for the first time, I decided to play it at 2:00 in the morning. I don't know why.
Perfect.
Wow.
It was pitch black. It was a really bad night, and so the wind was like howling outside and stuff. And my brother came up to watch me play it, and I think is her name Alma? Is that or that's Fear? Is Alma? Well, whatever the ghost creature from PT, whatever her Lisa, I think is it? I don't know.
I think it's Lisa.
Like
Lisa was in Resident Evil
as well.
I don't know.
I can't even remember anymore. It's
Lisa's in PT
as well. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So, like, PT obviously was terrifying, but I think, you know, when you do that kind of loop and you look up and she's in the rafters, I, like, nearly pegged my controller at the TV. I got such a fright. I don't know why. I don't know why it scared me so much, but I actually like nearly lamped my controller to the TV.
I have to say, in that section though, like in PT, the scariest bit of that was when the fucking radio says "Look behind you."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, that was horrendous. And if you don't look behind you in that loop, whenever you do look behind you in the next loop, it'll still happen. Yeah. You're just like, oh, thank God, I've got through the loop. I'm safe. You're not safe. There's no safe space. Yeah. Hate stupid games. But good question. I actually coming onto like the greatest games of all time type thing, the greatest horror games of all time. There is a list on here by a website called CBR.com, and they did a top 10 horror games basically as per Metacritic. And I wanted to see if you guys did agree. So their top horror game.
Real quick before you say out that list, I wanted to throw this out there at some point. A game that I think nobody talks about but should talk about is Inside.
Yeah.
It's on that list. It's on the top 10 list. Yeah,
yes!
Yeah.
That's all. I wanted to get it in before you read the list.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. The top 3, I guess, right? That, as voted by Metacritic.
I have not seen this list, by the way.
3 is The Last of Us. Which, The Last of Us 1. And just, beautiful game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Just the best game. The second one then is Bioshock. And the first one, or like the top as per Metacritic, was Resident Evil 4. Tops it all off as one of the greatest horror games of all time. But also on that
I believe that based on Metacritic.
Yeah, they're definitely on Metacritic. So again, like there is also Resident Evil 2 in there. Inside is in there. One of the Castlevanias is on there as well. Aria of Sorrow.
Really?
Yep. Limbo, which is a fucking unreal game. I wouldn't technically classify that as a horror game for some reason, but it's totally terrifying, so it should be a horror game. It is a horror game.
I've watched so many people not go anywhere further in that game than the first interaction with the fake spider. Like they stop right there. They stop right there.
Yeah. So this is a good list. Good list. Would you guys agree? Would you have put something else on that list? Like there's also Metro 2030, Left 4 Dead 2 as a multiplayer game. But yeah, I feel like there's
anything like Left 4 Dead is tough for me to say is a great horror game because we're going to get into this multiplayer horror. I don't think of Left 4 Dead as a great horror game. I think if it's a great multiplayer horror game, it's a great game to play and have fun with friends, and that's probably why it's on that list because it's a great game. But I don't think it's a great horror game.
I see.
I don't think it's scary.
Yeah, well, that's fair. It meets horror tropes though, and I feel like that's why it's obviously classified as
That's what I was going to say. Is that like and that was one of the discussions that Dan and I had about it. That for me, it's my number one. Last of Us 2. Not so much necessarily because of the horror aspect, but because of the horror tropes that it falls under. It's a post-apocalyptic zombie game. That's what it is. But at the same time, there are jump scares, there are moments and stuff like that. But to me, we were talking about the subjectiveness of horror. It definitely is horrifying, kind of like Visage in the same sense that it's not the horror of the monsters or the threat of death that is terrifying. It's the threat of humanity, what you leave the game with, that you're thinking, like, what if I was in that situation? Would I be one of the good guys? Would I be one of the bad guys? Would I be one of the neutral? Can I kill another human because I need a pair of shoes? And they're not willing to give them to me, which is a real question in those kinds of games. So I classify it as a horror in that regard. But that's how I read and write and watch horror. Is what is it that you are trying to portray? But if you're talking about conventional sense, I absolutely agree with Dan. I don't think it's a horror game, not strictly speaking, because it's not built around being terrifying. It's not built around scaring you. Or even Resident Evil 4 could be considered that, which I don't consider it a horror at all. But it has more of those jump scares and stuff like that, like shooting the lake and then the lago comes out. First time you did that as a kid because you're just trying to shoot fish, that scares the hell out of you because you're not expecting this giant thing to just chop you in half. I'm like, okay.
It's so funny how the game baits you into doing this. So for those of you who haven't played Resident Evil 4 Pagan, there's a part in the game where you walk up to a lake, there's a little, dock, and you come to the end and you see some fish jumping around. You're like, oh, fish. So you just like, okay, I'm going to shoot the fish. Maybe I'll get something from it because that's what you do in the game. And after you shoot the water a few times, this giant monster comes out and eats you and it's game over. And you're like,
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's not like you see it and then it pops up.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Whole time,
it's literally you're shooting and then it goes like real quick, and you're just,
the whole time you were describing that, I don't know why, but I was thinking of Animal Crossing. You know, like when you're fishing in Animal Crossing, you get to the pier. For some reason, I was like, wow, what a crossover. Like, I don't know why that was in my head. Sorry.
That's pagan.
Yeah, that's
horror.
my horror.
I think a better version of that, too, was in the Resident Evil 1 remake. Oh, my God, they did this so brilliantly, and I love the remake for this. There's the part in the original game where you go to a flooded basement, and it's got these sharks in it, and you got to kill the sharks. In the remake, you're like, oh, I'm getting to that part with the sharks. Here it comes. And you realize, like, oh, I'm in this giant lab that's flooded. And you see a shark, and you're like, oh, there's the shark. Let me shoot it. And while you're shooting the shark, a bigger shark jumps out and eats you.
Oh.
That was not in the... So it subverts your expectations. And the first time that happened to me playing that game, yeah, I lost my mind.
Nice. There was obviously when I just want to throw this out there. When we were going to do this podcast about horror, we did actually put all this on our social medias to ask you guys, the listeners, what you guys thought was your favorite horror game and why. And we did get some responses, so I'm happy to read some of those out. Kevin Clausen said Dead Space, hands down, so must agree with yourself, Dan, and also Billie Jean. Gerp Streaming said Dread. Is that right? No?
Dread.
Haven't played that game myself, but said the Jenga tower mechanic adds an intensity that is hard to match, let alone beat. I've seen it reduce players to trembling, sweaty messes, so I won't be playing that.
I'm not sure what
Dread is either, but I have heard of it. And then WT Famicom Silent Hill 2 as well. Obviously linking in with yourself, Louis, and Billie Jean.
What the Famicom?
Who else? Jack's new Alien Isolation filled me with dread from the second I started playing it to when I put it down. I think I tried to play that once, and I got as far as I think getting into like some sort of like some not even the very beginning of the game, and I just felt motion sickness, so I couldn't play it. But then it was I'd never really played any first person shooters either, so. We also did have some shout outs for like a couple of shout outs obviously for Dead Space or Resident Evil. We did have Dark Pictures Anthology mentioned by Mary Wood over on Facebook, which is kind of cool. I really enjoyed the Dark Pictures Anthology games. Until Dawn is one that I played, and then of course Man of Medan is something that I played recently. It's the same makers, just the Dark Pictures Anthology isn't specifically Until Dawn. It's Man of Medan, Little Hope, and House of Ashes.
I want to shout out too that someone did throw out Eternal Darkness, because I think that's a great classic horror game that too many people missed.
Jobson,
for sure.
Excuse me, Ryan Jobson shouted out Eternal Darkness on Facebook as well and said it was one of his favorites.
It's really good psychological horror. Fourth wall breaking psychological horror too. That's what made that game really stand out. I have to say,
some of the scariest moments in video games for me have been fourth wall breaking moments that weren't even in horror games. And the one that I'm talking about really is Batman in Arkham Asylum, where you're going into Scarecrow's kind of like section of the game, and you get this like blue screen or green screen of death, and you're just like, what the fuck happened to my PlayStation? And you go to reset it, and obviously it's fine. It's just it's the mechanic that they've used to scare you, the player.
See, now they took that from Eternal Darkness.
They?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Eternal Darkness did that.
You have a sanity meter, and when you don't take care of it, the game messes with you, and it'll tell you your memory card has been wiped, and it takes you to the blue screen, like your disconnection.
Like your video cut out.
That happened.
My favorite is still the volume was the best.
What was that?
They did something like that one at Silent Hills, didn't they, as well, like with a sanity thing?
A couple times,
yeah.
My favorite was still the volume in Eternal Darkness, because that one actually like got me really good. Like where it was like, who's messing with my TV? What the hell?
There were three things that it did. There was the volume, it turned off, and the unplugged components.
That scares the crap
everybody's TVs. Yeah, everybody's TVs were different though. So like my cousin, when he was playing it, he said that the way that it shut down looked exactly like his actual TV turning off. And he was sitting there playing it, and it turned off, and he just went.
Well, that's the same thing that happened to me with the volume, because the volume was the same for me, where it actually looked like the volume on my TV. So I thought it was actually happening.
Yeah, we had a green bar, so when that happened to me and I saw it was the white bar, I was like, "Yeah, it's not real."
Oh.
So I knew it wasn't messing with my TV. But that's why they had 3 of them, because most people's TVs turn off like this. Most people have the volume like this, and most people unplug, have it like this. So it'll go blue. And it'll say component missing.
Yeah,
like Kojima would do that in Metal Gear. They did the same
Hideo.
thing.
See, that kind of stuff is like
Hideo.
Incredibly interesting to me as like a person who doesn't play horror games, because that really is targeting you on another level. Like it's targeting you on like an inner fear about the fucking quality of your I guess components, your physical components, your PlayStation, your Xbox, your computer, your TV. Just like that shit breaking is like, because it's terrifying, because then you have to get a new one and you're so scared. So that is an incredibly interesting element of horror. There is another one that I have heard about recently, have not played it. It is Doki Doki Literature Club. Has anybody played this game?
I haven't played it yet, but that's on my list.
I haven't played it, but I
don't want to know anything about it, because all I know is it gets weird.
Okay. All right. Well, then I won't spoil it for you, but that is also has some very interesting elements of horror, or not horror, but like it's not a horror game. What I mean is like it's like that fourth wall almost, where there's an element in there that I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thing, because that would also be fucked up for me. I'd be like, I don't know how to do this, because I'm not a person who plays these kind of things. So that's an interesting one. I think some sort of psychological issue there. So I just want to move on to one of our final topics here on the Replayer podcast regarding the horrors is horror multiplayer. Have you guys played it? Do you like it? What do you think? I mean, I will just speak from experience here that myself and Dan recently just played Back 4 Blood. There will be a video soon on our page, or actually it's been uploaded, hasn't it? Or it will be.
It'll be uploaded by the time this episode airs.
Apologies. When this airs, you will see that episode available on our YouTube channel. So that was interesting for me. I've also played Phasmophobia, so it wasn't like my first experience in a horror multiplayer. But I am still scared. And I don't know, like being with other people makes it feel less scared, and I really do enjoy it. And I just wanted to get you guys what your guys' opinion is on that. Like, do you enjoy multiplayer horror games? Do you think that it here's really my question. Is it a fun game for you because you're playing with friends, or is it a fun game for you because it's a horror game that you're playing together?
Both.
God damn it, Dan.
Yeah.
And that's the end of our podcast. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. But why not both? Yeah, that's fair. Billie Jean.
How about you, Billie Jean?
Billie Jean, have you played multiplayer horror games?
Only kind of like a handful of times. I tend not to play multiplayer in general because I don't know, I get really aggro and I get really like contained, and like I don't know how Pagan you stream like fair play, because like my sister was watching me play Alan Wake last week and she was talking to me and I was actually going to backhand her. I love the girl with all my heart, but I was so busy concentrating that I was like, I literally can't process anything else.
Oh my god!
But like I've played Friday the 13th and stuff. I've played a bit of Dead by Daylight and like back in the day Left 4 Dead and stuff. But again, I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on the group that you're with. Like if you're with some good friends that appreciate the experience, there's nothing better. But then if you're like stuck with a group of lads that are just wanting to abuse little 12-year-olds, it's the fun kind of gets ripped out of it. Like it can be funny for about 10 minutes and then you're kind of over it. But yeah, I think I much prefer kind of horror in a communal sense, like in regards to like movies. I think peak horror for me game wise is when I'm by myself. It is really late and everything just kind of atmospheric encompasses the whole experience. And yeah, I wouldn't be too mad on the multiplayer end when it comes to horror.
No problem. Louis, what about you? What about multiplayer horror for you? Do you play them?
One of the first real big endeavors that I had, mostly with Dan and a lot of the people at Deadpan, was doing Phasmophobia. That was the first time I really played Steam games with friends. Until then, it was all PlayStation, but I had Steam. I'm looking at at least 30 games I have on my laptop right now, and half of them are horror. It's kind of like going to a haunted house. Like, I can watch a horror movie, I can be scared, I can play a horror game, I can be scared, and blah, blah, blah. And I'll feel it. The jump scare will get me. I'll, do that little jolt. But when you're with friends, you are performing. It doesn't matter if people are watching. It doesn't matter anything like that. You're with people. You want them to know, like, holy shit, this actually scared me. So it would make you go like that. Now you're going, whoa, dude.
Yeah.
It brings it out of you. It's like when you go to watch a movie, it's a real funny movie. It could be the best comedy on the planet. You're gonna when you're alone, but when you're with friends, like high-fiving and throwing popcorn at each other, and you're having a great time.
You sound like a riot to go out with, honestly. Like, I mean, all of my friends, a bit Judith could attest to this, and she'd be like, good film, lads. Yeah. It's all right.
Yeah.
I want you
life-changing film. Fucking life-changing film. And all of us are like, yeah, good film? Yeah, it's good? Yeah? Right. Yeah, good. See you next week? All right. Okay, bye. Yeah, my mind, like, changed my life. All right, have a good evening. Bye.
Now, in fairness, Pagan, I think, remember when we went to go see Logan? And, like, me and you had to be, like, carried out of the cinema, and all the lads were like, oh, we don't care.
Yeah.
And I was, like, shouting and
it's so
fucking
everyone. Good. Oh, my God, did you see the Last of Us references? It's so good. But Jesus Christ, I didn't fucking do it. And the lads are like, shut the fuck up. Can we go home now? In fact, I'm pretty sure multiple of them were just like, can we go home now? Like, you guys need to sit outside the cinema talking for 40 minutes. Would you mind?
Yeah, like me and Pagan, literally, we went outside and put our head between our knees and were, like, crying. But I think it was the fact that I was so hysterical made you a bit more hysterical. It was really bad.
Yeah.
I was bawling. I was a disgrace.
We're feeding off each other, like Louis was talking about. Like, you're just kind of, like, feeding off. Like, it exacerbates the whole emotional situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and all those heathens were staring at us.
Those heathens.
Like my cousins and I went to go see the first Paranormal Activity when it came out.
Oh, God.
And we were scared shitless. We saw the midnight showing. We got out. We all went to my cousin's house, and we sat outside for about an hour and a half just talking about the funniest things we could think of because none of us wanted to leave to go to bed. Everyone was just like, so... Did you see that new cartoon that just came out? Like, whatever we go. What about Disney? What do you guys think about musicals? They're pretty good, right? Like, we did not want to leave, and it got to a point where it was so uncomfortable. We actually would say that. It's like, "Are you ready to go to bed yet?" Like, nah. All right, let's keep talking because I don't want to do it either.
No.
So we're cracking open beers or standing outside in a parking lot. We did not want to go to bed. It was too scary.
I mean, fair.
But, I mean, yeah, and we were in an arena full of people. All watching the same movie, there's no reason why we should. There's no reason to feel that terrible.
So when The Conjuring came out, I had a bucket list thing, and then one of the buckets is. So I don't watch horror. Obviously, everybody knows that on this channel. So I don't watch horror. I don't like horror. I don't do horror because I'm a big baby. But The Conjuring came out, and I wanted to see a horror film in the cinema. That was like on my bucket list. I wanted to see a horror film in the cinema. So The Conjuring just came out. I was like, you know what? We're gonna do it. So myself and a few friends were like, right, we're gonna go see this in the cinema. And Adam couldn't go with me because our logic was, if I see the film and I'm terrified, then he hasn't seen the film and he's fine, and he'll be able to be like, it's okay, calm down. If we both go to see the film and we're both terrified, we're fucked and we're never sleeping again. So that was like our literal compromise of well, do you need to see this film? And I was like, God, no, you can go see that. I was like, okay, great, thanks. So I went to see it, and I was, terrified because my luck happens that it was one of the greatest horror films that came out that year, or films to date, I believe. There's a lot of critics who were like, this was actually a really good fucking horror film. I was like, of course it was. I couldn't end up going to see a shit horror film in the cinema for my first ever time. But so similarly, we did. It's not that we kind of didn't want to go to sleep because it was too scary. It was literally a partner had to stay home and not see the film so that they could be pure, so that they wouldn't be contaminated by that
unsullied
horror.
That's why I have animals. I just look at them and I'm like, okay, nobody's in the bathroom. We're good.
Just hold me.
No killer clowns. We're good.
Okay. Pagan, I have a question.
Yes.
For you, as an actress. If a script came across your desk that was bona fide, certifiable, going to be like the scariest horror movie of all time, and you had to take the lead role, would you do it? Knowing that you'd eventually have to go to a premiere and see it.
No. So no, that's not fair. They can make me go to the premiere. I don't have to watch it. Like, I have to do the press bit.
What are you gonna
and walk
do?
the carpet and be like, yeah, good film. Fuck you. If Johnny Depp can go this far without seeing any one of his movies, I can do the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would. And like the horror element really is only in the feature of the film, like the music especially. Like if I can turn it on mute, I'm not as scared. So it's the music and the environment that creates as a whole, like the whole mise en scène together really does come together to scare the fucking shit out of me. So if I'm on set and there's like 40 different people as an AD, and there's like several trainee ADs, and there's the second assistant director, and you know all this kind of stuff are happening, and they're like, all right, let's go, we got 3 cuts on this, like get the fucking fog out, let's go. I'm okay, because I'm like, this is not real. But I will say that a friend of mine, I will shout her out, Alicia, who is also a bridesmaid. She's a fantastic actress, and she was in a horror film that she had to be possessed. And that's something that I don't fuck with. I don't know if I would say yes to that. I'm not 100% sure, because I'm not like, I don't fuck with the possession shit and the ghosts and stuff like that. Like you just don't fuck with it, because nobody could tell you that it's not real. And that scares the shit out of me. So I'm like, this is something that I don't mess with, the whole possession thing. I will not ever, ever, ever see The Exorcist. I don't want to see it. I've seen clips of it, and it scared the absolute shit out of me when I was a kid. So I was like, nope, never gonna happen. So I don't fuck with that kind of stuff.
So
but on the would I do it? Yes. Would I go see the movie? No.
See, I want that to happen next. I want to see junkets of like
video.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My bad.
I hear you, but I lost your video now.
No, I was just going to say that. Like,
Sorry.
I want that to happen, because I want to see like Pagan had a press junket, and people be like, "So Pagan, what did you think of the movie?" And she'd have to like lie through her teeth.
I would be able to do that. It was great,
Amazing.
really tense, really scary.
Yeah,
you know, it's hard to do. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I would just deflect the fucking question to be like, how was it making the movie?
But it's different when you make
Yeah.
it. It's different when like you're there. You know that you're not actually looking at a monster going, ah! Like you know that.
It's true, but I will say, like, I feel like there's definitely something that happens to actors and actresses when you have to do something emotionally quite tense. So either like a very emotional scene, like very dramatic scene, a very upset or sad scene, angry, kind of okay, and then like terrified or scared. Sometimes you really do just have to go to a place where you just, it's hard to get to, and then it's really hard to come back out of. And I think that side of it would be very difficult.
That's an entirely different thing, because I've been there too. But my point is that, like, if it's hard for you to get to or out of emotionally, that's not the scare. If you are in a scary movie, just because it's scary, all you have to do is scream really well. Yeah. Which, by the way, I do want to point out, Pagan, you have one of the most hilarious screams on the planet. It isn't a, it's a, wah! You get a big, hard W on there.
It's definitely a W.
Every time I hear it, I cry of laughter. It's so much. We have to hang out. One of these days I'm going to Ireland, because you're not coming here to Texas. It sucks. I'm going to Ireland. We're going to go watch a horror movie, and I'm just going to sit there like this.
Billie Jean will come.
Go ahead.
You're going to be like in the seat in front of her.
Yeah,
like,
you'll right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm just here to witness.
It comes from like it. I do think it actually comes from as a kid, when your parents or like your aunts and uncle or whatever would try and scare you, like they'll pop out of a corner and like try and jump scare you effectively as a child. They would always use the wah, W-A-H, wah sound instead of a boo sound or like a ooh, like something like that. It was always W-A-H, hard W-A-H. So my scream probably just reflected that. So anytime I scream, it's like a wah. Yeah, you can fucking subtitle my screams. Like, great question. Thank you so much, Billie Jean. That was a good question.
No worries. So I was just thinking about like Dakota interviewed on your own podcast, but like it was just Dakota Johnson talking about the new her Suspiria remake and how she said like it totally drove her to like a really weird dark place that she found it like super kind of heavy to kind of get through and come back from. So yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to pose that question.
I wouldn't mind doing something like a cool slasher film or something like that. That would be really interesting. Or even something like Alien. Like Sigourney Weaver's part in Alien was just a perfect part. Like what a well-written role as Riley. Love it. I would do that. Depends on the horror. The exorcism type horror, no, I don't fuck with it. So no.
Ripley.
Sorry, Ripley. Sorry, Ripley.
I was like, I'm gonna let Louis correct
sorry.
you.
I was thinking of
I could see Dan Knight switch a little.
Ripley.
I'm like,
I got the
Ripley.
If I can bring it back to when we were talking about like multiplayer horror games, I went into that thought thinking of, Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood, Phasmophobia. But there was something that Billie Jean actually said that brought me back to something I hadn't thought about in a long time as far as a good horror experience. And I think some of my favorite moments came from games that weren't really intended to be horror. And I'm specifically thinking of my time playing co-op in the original Gears of War and Halo.
Yes.
Like there are parts in those games that just nail it. Like this is a terrifying situation and we're going through this together, and we're both, or the three of us, the four of us, are just as powerless to deal with the situation. Especially like the first Gears of War.
Yeah.
That shit gets dark real fast. And like Halo, the first time you run into the flood, and it's very much a like, what is happening? Where did this come from? I was shooting aliens. What are these things? Like it kind of throws a curveball at you, and it comes out of nowhere. And before you know it, you're running for your life from these aliens and face hugger like creatures that you weren't fighting before. And Gears is something that I think if you haven't played that series, it hits you in an emotional way, and it hits you in this guttural, visceral way of like, it's I can't even express it. We need Jake back on here
for the first time now with Game Pass.
Yeah. Like if you need somebody to play through Gears with, I'm here for you, Louis, because you're gonna need someone to hold your hand through that.
Gears is spectacular.
You need that bromance to get through it.
Camaraderie.
I don't think anything has done kind of like that camaraderie kind of element like Halo and Gears. I think that's kind of like, and one thing I kind of noticed with the pandemic, obviously people have been laid off their jobs and stuff, that like my brother would online game a lot, like, but I wouldn't as much. But like him and all his childhood friends who would have played Halo and Gears and stuff together the whole time, suddenly as adults they were now able to kind of revert back to like their 15, 16-year-old selves and play Halo and Gears and stuff. And it was like nothing ever changed. And like, they just don't make them like that anymore. Like you can play you can play Fortnite and God knows whatever. And like, it's a bit of crack, but like there was something special about those two games in particular that was like almost like religious. It was a total experience.
I want to give Gears 5 a pat on the back then in that vein too, because like Gears kind of like went really mainstream, and then now like I played through Gears 1, 2, and 3 with a good friend of mine. We co-op through almost every one of them, and we played Gears 5 when it came out, and it kind of brought us back to that, like you were saying, like that bringing us back to being 15-year-olds and that camaraderie that we had. And there were moments in Gears 5 where you're just like, holy shit, like how are we going to do this? How are we going to get through this moment and this experience, especially fighting like certain monsters in those games that are just terrifying, and you make one mistake and you watch your character explode and you're just like, I'm dead. And it's like, shit.
Great.
There's that brings up a nice little question, and sorry we think of it too late into the discussion now. like horror, I mean we've been bringing it up, but like to kind of just pin it down, great horror in games that are not horror games. Like I can tell you that one of my favorite things of all time was Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yes.
When you're running around and finding these little houses in the middle of nowhere and piecing together what the hell happened, why there's 30 skeletons in a tiny little closet. I'm like, huh.
Fuck.
Okay. Finding man, bear, pig, which is supposed to be a joke, but I was terrified by this horrible monstrosity that was pieced together by some messed up dude. Like yeah. But I love that, like the exploration, and there's always something about it. It's also in its own version of an uncanny valley. I forget what it's called. It's an actual thing where it's open spaces, and it's actually pretty popular. I think right now on like creepypastas and stuff like that.
Yeah. The fear of open spaces. It's fuck it, because I have it.
I would say it's that sense of discovery, though.
Agoraphobia is the fear of being situations where escape might be difficult or that help. That's more like
not agoraphobia. I forget what it's called. It's a very specific.
It is actually technically it is actually technically agoraphobia because it's the irrational fear of public places, open spaces, and crowds. So it kind of encompasses.
No. Opposite. That you have open spaces without anybody in there. Places that should be filled that are not filled. So, like, for example, we were talking about fear. You get into office buildings that are empty.
Yeah.
Where you see where life is supposed to be, but it doesn't exist.
The first thing that makes me think of is the opening to 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a perfect, beautiful opening.
Yeah.
Dead Space 2 does that really well, too.
Yeah.
Dead Space 2 does that really well.
Yeah.
I was watching some videos from one of my favorite YouTubers, Nexpo. He always gets into really creepy stuff. And that was where I saw it, that he was talking about there are whole websites that are dedicated. Like, they just show creepy pictures that are just big open spaces. Or there are horror games that you could play where it's like a multiplayer video game that doesn't have any other multiplayers, massive multiplayers.
No.
So think of playing World of Warcraft in its entirety without a single person there. No NPCs, no other individuals. You just see what this whole game was supposed to be, filled with life, and there's nobody there. It automatically kind of fills in the blanks for you that something is wrong here. So when you get things like Red Dead Redemption or Fallout is a big one, Skyrim, stuff like that.
The Witcher has good elements of that too.
Yeah,
Witcher bringing in good elements of that too.
When you go from a town that's got a couple hundred NPCs walking around and you have to move your way through them, then you get to a small town that's got nothing but dead bodies kind of in little areas. Oh,
yeah.
It's creepy. It's really cool.
I apologize. I don't have that. Agoraphobia it's a fear of wide open spaces or wide open empty spaces. Thalassophobia is what I have, which is the fear of large, deep bodies of water. Yes. Because fucking legit fear, man. Like, if you're not afraid, if you're swimming in the middle of the ocean and you look down and you see nothing but darkness and you're not afraid, there's something wrong with you. Like, there's so much.
I actually dealt with that when I was in the Navy. Because they would actually purposely stop the ships in the middle of the ocean and let people go swimming, and I was always like, nope,
fuck that, no,
no, sir. I did it once. My last ship out, I was like, I'm gonna jump in and climb right back out. Like, I literally jumped in and climbed my ass right back out. Just to say I did it.
But yeah, sorry, we're gonna round up the podcast. If you are interested in talking in I guess learning more about Gears, or talking about Gears, you can find that over on the website. Jake Brown's articles are over there, including some articles about horror and horror games, or living with a horror junkie. Like Dan, Brandy's articles are over there. Yes, I live with a survival horror junkie, and When Men Scream Like Girls, Scary Game edition. Which are articles available on the website by Brandy, a friend of the show.
You can get some unique perspective of someone who's not a horror fan, living with a person who's a horror fan, and how she's experiencing these games and these things secondhand through me. So that's a unique, interesting way of seeing it.
Yeah.
And then you get to see Dan scream.
Oh yeah,
it's in that article.
It's in there. It's got that clip of me actually getting scared and screaming.
Those screams are few and far between, folks. He is dead inside. I just want to clarify. So if you do want to see one of those rare moments, it is available on the website. Over on RetroReplayShow.com, soon to be Couch Soup when they transition in the next couple of months.
Yes. I'll take her out. So just wanted to say, as always, if you guys want to reach out to us here at the show, pop us an email over at thereplayerpodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter. Let us know about any other discussions that you'd like to see us having, or if you want to come on the show. Lastly, I just want to thank our guest, Billie Jean, for joining us, and shout out your Instagram and Twitter account.
Are they both Video Nasty Presents?
So Instagram is Video Nasty Presents. Twitter, unfortunately, is The Nasty Presents. thanks to character space. The Nasty Presents. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. I had a blast. Amazing.
Yeah, this is a great
pleasure
fun.
to have you on, Jane.
Horror is fun, Pagan.
Yeah,
horror is fun,
Pagan.
You'll never convince
I'll
me.
work on it, guys.
You'll see. You're gonna get like 2 or 3 episodes of your Dead Space playthrough, and you're gonna be like, yes.
Yeah.
No, I actually felt
and then that'll be
sick. Like, there's a part in the second part of, like, when this video comes up, you'll see the second one is already available on my channel. But there's a part in this where I just, like, I feel like I'm shaking. I don't feel good. Like, I feel shit. So I have the amount of cuts in that video. You might be like, oh, that's a weird cut, or that's a cut. You know why? Because I paused the game and had to get a cup of tea because I was like, fuck this game. I hate it. I'm never playing anymore. Maybe I should just do a compilation of
all those cuts.
Wearing a different shirt.
You should have made all those cuts where it's like, it starts with you being like, and then you get up and walk away. And then it's just, it cuts to you coming back and sitting down. I'm like,
I might do that. Super.
I was going to say, every time you have to take a break, if you don't want to show you actually leaving, literally change your shirt or put a hat on, anything different, so that way every time there's a cut massively, everyone knows, like, okay, you gotta walk away. Oh shit!
I'll just keep adding stuff. So I'll just add layers every cut. So like I'll add multiple hats and scarves and shit like that for every single cut.
Comfort layers.
That I've had to go away and just calm myself down.
By the end, you're that kid in the Christmas story.
Joey from Friends, like with all of Chandler's clothes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god! By the way, it's called kenophobia, the fear of empty and wide open spaces.
Interesting.
That's what I got.
Kenophobia.
So okay.
I don't even like that word. Doesn't sound good.
Fear of empty spaces. Right? The other one, agoraphobia, is empty. Like open spaces, and I see.
Yeah, open spaces with film.
Speaking of vocabulary, I totally forgot. I had looked up and researched this before. There's a word for someone who enjoys gore, and it's called a carno. Carno is like you would call. I was going to say, I was like, that's Billie Jean. And there's also carnography. There's carnography, like it's like you enjoy witnessing gore and violence and that kind of thing.
Look it up in the encyclopedia. It's a picture of Billie Jean. And her
I
phone
used
number.
To love horror movies, and there was a point where I wouldn't think a horror movie was good if there was no more than like 3 people being viscerally torn apart. If there was less than 3 people being murdered, I was like, this movie sucked.
I was basically the same.
What?
Yeah.
Actually, just before we wrap up on a gentle note, well, it's not gentle, but a criminally underrated horror game is actually the Saw games. They're actually
the game of Saw.
It's actually it's pretty good. Okay. I went through a stage a couple of years ago where I just was literally playing anything I could get my hands on, and I think I played Saw and Condemned after I played Fear. And
what is wrong with you?
So much.
I just played Saw after I played Fear, and then after I played Condemned.
Yeah, Condemned.
I'm actually playing Condemned right now.
Condemned is spectacular. Condemned is spectacular. It would make a great movie. It would make a really good movie. But the Saw games they're pretty good. I think I can't remember if I preferred the first or the second, but Saw it's worth going back and having a look at.
I have to check that out. I have a lot of games on my list I need to check out. Yeah. But anyways, so I'm Dan. That's Pagan. Thank you, Louie. Thank you, Billie Jean, for joining us this week for this discussion. This is the Replayer Podcast, and that's game over.
Bye.
Bye. You are dead.
Oh, yeah.
You are wasted.
You
are dead.
That's always fine.